Still pattern seeking. I found one that's very interesting. It's right in the very beginning of, well, it's all over the place, but I'll say in this video, I'm going to make a comparison between the Enuma Elish, the original or the oldest creation myth that we have recorded, and Genesis, which occurred, I don't know, hundreds of years later, and then the Tao Te Ching, Chinese, very short, compact verses, to show how all three of them are following the same pattern in slightly different techniques. Anyway, my name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel, and let's get started. Here's how I'm going to do this one. Okay, first I will share this screen, the Enuma Elish to Genesis to the Tao Te Ching, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing here. You see I've got those in different colors. As I go through this and I'm analyzing it, I'll scroll down here. You can see that I've got different color text differentiating from its source. So I'm making comparisons and I'm keeping them separated by colors and a few other notes here and there. All the blue is my own notes that I'm making along the way. So the Enuma Elish to Genesis to the Tao Te Ching, they contain the same nested teachings, simply in different cryptic verbal carrier stories or arcs. The arc is a term used as an analog, meaning to carry something inside. We know about the story, the Ark of the Covenant. That's what that is. These stories are the carriers for something that is inside. The Enuma Elish that I'm going to be using, the translation by Timothy J. Stephanie. Genesis, I'll be using the New Revised Standard Version. The Tao Te Ching translation by Stephen Mitchell. And again, the blue comments are the blue text are my comments. The way I'm going to do this is that these are going to be mirrored into the psyche, all of them, and played out as mental constructs contained in analogous terms. It's like a fable, but these will specifically address personal human experiences in life and how to change one's life. Each teaching will be exposed to the same interpretation process, and this is a fixed process. It's not going to be variable, and it's not going to include anything supernatural. Although it is going to be kind of large and diverse, so it's patterned, though, in a manner to see it. We're looking for the patterns. Also, the inner spiritual teachings are consistent across the board between all religions, myth, and spiritual teachings if you decode them in the same manner. If you don't, they stay variable. They stay all over the place. Okay, so so I've got extreme confidence in what I'm finding. It is learned through thought experiment. The creation is about each person. We are what is being created. When played out in the psyche after converting analogs, each teaching is the same guru or template that we will find. I'm going to make a note here right in the beginning before we get into it that there's two variant stories about creation in Genesis. Each one of them serves a little different purpose. I'll talk about them as we go through them. They don't appear like they came from the same place, though. The first variant refers to gods in plural form, and it's not written as if it is from a monotheism. It kind of closely resembles earlier styles from Babylonian, Greek, and Egyptian and other sources. It was common to have multiple gods in the stories. And then version 2, when that comes about, it's actually creating our psyche through the emergence of Eve and and where we start out in life initially pure, right at that moment where we're naked in the garden and not ashamed. But it also shifts to a full-on monotheistic variant teaching at that point. Okay, the first thing I want to do is talk a little bit more about this idea of playing it out in the psyche. This is where just the constant thought experimenting is something that I did that played it out until it consistently emerged. You learn little bits and pieces until you tie it all together into a bigger network. And that is what we're looking at here. In a storytelling culture, there is something nested in their stories that emerges. And it emerges by studying the patterns. But once we play them out in the psyche, that's what makes the difference right there. So it would be something like saying, I need to clean the inside of my cup. Now, that might mean that I need to clean out the inside of my coffee or teacup, literally. Or it might mean that I might look at it metaphorically and think, oh, I need to kind of change some of the way I've done some things in life in the past, some things I'm doing. And you make it physical, you make it about yourself, but it still isn't really being played out in the psyche. You become the cup. That cup is an analog for you. You're the vessel, and the inside of you has become full of things that we want to clean out. They're things that we don't want in life. That's what I mean by turning it inward. Once we take it from the physical outward to completely inward like that is how I'm going to play out all of the verses that way. And when we do that, we're going to see magic emerge. There's one thing in here, in all of them. However, I'm going to very confidently suggest to you that what is going to emerge are interactive steps that we take for self-healing. Very directly, we have control over it. That is what is nested in here. Not a lot of people are going to grab it, so it's nested in ways that the masses will carry it. So we're unlocking it. We're finding out the template, the pattern, the reason for that pattern to be here. Okay then, let's get into it. Right in the beginning of all of these teachings, it's going to start out that there is nothing that exists. There's only potential that exists. And when we play that out in the psyche, what that becomes is us at birth. When we're first born, we exist, and we can become what? Anything. If you're healthy and strong and all of that, and you're taken from your birthplace and put somewhere else in a different culture and a different belief, separated from somebody else, you would emerge differently. We know that to begin with. So it's letting us know that we are emergent from our experiences, and those experiences start off with the potential of becoming anything. We can become anything, and what we become is what we begin to classify. They call it naming or judging. It's really, when you're playing it out in the psyche, it is starting out in life. We don't have any experiences. We're infants. We're not even self-aware for a few years. As we learn more, as our vision and all that comes online and we start making brain connections, pretty soon we're grabbing bananas because they're yellow and they taste good. We're starting to put things together. We're processing, but we're having fun, and we're not judging things. We're not looking at people and thinking, oh, they're ugly, they stink, they're fat, they're eating crap. We don't look at life like that. Not at that age. You're looking at life non-judgmental. And that's a magic place right there. You're happy about anything. You're not connected to it. Later on, we emerge and we begin to connect and we begin to experience life, and we become something that is different. If you think back on your life, and there will be people that don't fit this. There will be people that started right off in very abusive environments. So this is not necessarily 100% for everybody. I'm speaking about it in general terms. What the material contains is basically that teaching. You became a product of where you came from, and that's going to continue to act out, and it's going to hurt you until you purge yourself and start life over again. And let's see how that emerges. Okay, let me pull this screen up again, and we'll take just a very quick refresh. Red Enuma, that's from the Enuma Elish. The black is Genesis, and green is the Tao Te Ching. And as we go down here, you'll see right here where it starts red. I also put an EE there, just a reminder of Enuma Elish. I will do things like this from time to time. Do you see this? Unuttered and unnamed. This translation said at a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath. That should just be unnamed. Unuttered is a fine word. It really means the same thing. But in so much of the material, they reference naming. Things are not named yet. Now they are named. I don't want to clutter that up. I want to maintain that unuttered, which means that you haven't said it, you haven't named. Just put it back to unnamed, because it simplifies the idea that we're looking at patterns and we're looking at repetitions in here. And, okay, so what does this say? At a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered, unnamed was the word for which the world which lay beneath. It was then that the first being Apsu, who was their source, and the progenitor Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to all, intermingled their waters, producing neither field nor marsh, at a time when no divine beings had yet come into existence. There were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. Okay, this describes as quite a void. There's nothing there. And of course, it starts adding in pieces, Tiamat, Apsu, who intermingled their waters, who gave birth to all of that. However, at this point in time, it hasn't started yet. So they're putting a lot of details in there, and it sounds a little complicated, but really it's saying that all of these things that are going to be created are not yet created. Nothing is there. And I put my notes down here that in the existence of a human, if we play that out in a psyche, where does that become us? When does this describe who and what we are? In the glories above, we had not become separated, our conscious and our subconscious. Well, let me read my notes here. Full dynamic human life potential exists right here. We have been born but have not yet developed conscious self-awareness. Mental ease and non-connectedness exists at this point in life. No field or marsh means no separation and no personal characteristics from a life of judgment have yet begun. No fates pronounced as nothing yet named. Okay, so we're at a point where this is before creation. We are just a happy child. Yay. Life is fun. Nothing is named. No fates are in place. We have not consciously decided what we like, what we don't like, what we desire, what we can't live without, what we hate, what makes us shameful, what makes us angry. Those things are not happening yet. We're still before that at this point. Now, if we jump to the Bible, what does it say? In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, while a wind from God swept over the face of the waters. Wind from God swept over the face of the waters. That's, I don't know that there's anything there. But in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was a formless void, and darkness covered the face of the deep. So there's a void in the beginning. Same thing. Full dynamic human life potential exists here. We've been born but have not yet developed our conscious self-awareness. Mental ease and non-connectedness. Two issues exist at this point in time in our life. So all the potential is there. We exist. This is all of these are getting to that same point. Now, if we go to the Tao Te Ching, it has a little bit different style. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The unnameable is the eternally real. So if we fit this in the same way, the Tao in this case becomes an analog for the all or the life potential of each human. Not classified, named, or judged. They are not stored mental concepts yet. There's just this empty void, although it's not doing it in the form of a creation story. It's doing it it's still a cryptic manner, but it's not hidden in a story that looks outward that makes some people go, oh, that could be true. In this case, you realize, oh, there's something cryptic in there. So you see it's a different kind of vehicle to carry the same teaching, but that same teaching is nevertheless there if we use the same process to interpret it. Playing it out in the psyche. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The whatever we emerge from is eternal. We can become anything from that. But once we begin naming it and classifying it, we become that. Okay, you see, in all of those, we have the void, the potential for everything right there, right in the beginning. We can emerge from anywhere. Then creation begins in the very next line of the Enuma Elish, but the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. Okay, my notes here, Lamu and Lahamu, that's a male and female variant. My name is perfect in that. You could call me, I could be Daniel or Danielle. There's a male and female variant. And that could be used to denote my conscious and my subconscious, or my carnal mind and my soul. Denotes my earliest form of aware self. I'm not yet experienced in life, but lives happy as a child should. You see, and there's the first were Lamu and Lahamu, their names were spoken. So within the midst of the void in the Enuma Elish, the first thing that emerges is the conscious and the subconscious. Their names were spoken. Not yet experienced in life, but lives life happy as a child should. Conscious and subconscious developed, but does not store life experiences outside of a child's unconcern or non-judgment. We are now becoming two, but not storing anything that takes us away from being happy. This Lamu and Lahamu at this point is going to be analogous to Adam and Eve. The comparison prior to them, when Adam and Eve consumed the knowledge of good and evil, at first, when they were first naked in the garden and not ashamed, that is the same point where Lamu and Lahamu are at this point. They're created, but from there nothing yet emerges. The sin and things like that are not there. In creation, let's see what it says. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. Now, I got a few things to say about this. First of all, this is going to get really large here, so I don't want to cover it super extensively. The 7-day creation story and the Genesis creation is going to be very detailed compared to what was the Enuma Elish, but the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. Now, remember up above where it said producing neither field nor marsh at a time when no divine beings had yet come into existence. So that was prior to this same point here, where all of those things are now in this part of the story going to be coming into existence. Creation is beginning right here. But the creation here is, all of these are analogs as well. And if we go through here and just look at what God said, and highlight that, we say, first of all, let there be light. The next one is, let there be dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. The next one says, let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. The next one says, let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit, and so on. We're going to go through all of that. This becomes very rich and a large carrier story. It is not compact at all like what we're going to find from Lao Tzu and the Tao Te Ching teaching this. But it contains other elements in here as well. This first one, let there be light. We simply come into existence at this point. We are infants but lack the visual, audio, brain wiring to grasp the world yet. Let there be a dome in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. Remember, we have to find a way to play these out in the psyche, that they are referencing that somehow in a way that's going to make some sort of sense that isn't going to be mystical. We begin to emerge more as physical, conscious, and spiritual, subconscious beings. Upper, lower, within, without. See that separation from the upper and the higher right there? We exist both in the spiritual or energy realm as well as in the physical realm. And I simply mean that life is not strictly physical. We emerge from within the physical laws of the universe. Blah, blah, blah. This is the separation of us, the inner, the outer. Our conscious, our subconscious is being created, but it's not very easy to see it there. Let the waters under the sky be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. This is creating a solid separation between our outer experience and inner experiences. Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees of every kind on earth that bear fruit with the seed in it. Okay, what emerges from our gardens? Anything that manifests comes from an energy source. Nothing can grow to fruition unless there's a seed for it to begin with. Let the earth put forth vegetation, plants yielding seeds and fruit trees. The earth is our life. It's our experience. It is our earth. Let my earth put forth vegetation, the plants, the yielding seeds, that whatever I am producing and doing physically, whatever I am manifesting is also creating seeds with it. It is creating a flow. And fruit trees of every kind on the earth that bear fruit with the seed in it. The manifestation of what's going to happen is always in there. My notes, the potential now exists for us to experience any human emergent life situation. This is cause and effect. And the teaching, this is cause and effect coming into play. If something happened, if you watch a behavior emerge, it started before there. There's something that drove that reaction. I don't mean emergencies and things like that, but if people are snapping or something like that, issues are coming out. There's a reason for the person's behavior that is deeper than the behavior itself, and this is teaching us that cause and effect is there. Okay, then let there be lights in the dome of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and days and for years. This denotes that our life and all of its named creations will continue to emerge in cycles. Everything in the universe functions in cycles, and this is one of the keys, that they're showing some sort of an emergent cyclical behavior happening right here. So, what was the one prior to that? Let the earth put forth vegetation. What emerges from our garden is going to come about cyclically. Okay, and again, there's a couple of creation stories. So the first one, we know that it's 7 days. I don't want it, like I said, to get into a lot of detail with that, but you can see that each one of them is containing something. You're emergent, you become separated, upper and lower. Cyclical things happen, that it emerges like that, and it's 7 days. And what I want to do is deviate just for a second here, because that's just what we have to do, I think. So God blessed the seventh day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Okay, so what I want to say here is human emergence here in this early Hebrew writing is a 7-day thing, isn't it? That's going to be an analog. We know that it's not literal. Human emergence to awareness from birth is being created in the 7-day analog. Therefore, 7 days here would mean the time from birth to the time we are happy and self-aware. If you look through here, you will see that we get to creation and Eve before sin happens. So this is the time in our life where everything is okay still. Playing, cooing, giggling, not a care in the world, etc. After learning about the things in life, but before learning to judge them. Where does it say elsewhere? Enter into the kingdom of heaven within as a child. Gospel of Thomas, verse 4, the man old in days will not hesitate to ask a small child 7 days old about the place of life, and he will live. I believe those are pointing to this mental location right here where we are at a point in time where we are conscious and subconscious, happily coexisting together without issues internally. Yeah. Matthew 18:3, and said, assuredly I say to you, unless you are converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. But the Gospel of Thomas leaves that 7 days in there. That kind of dials it right into a source, doesn't it? All right, and I felt that was an important deviation. I've done videos on that before where we trying to interpret what that 7 days is in the Gospel of Thomas, and I believe this is it right here, that it is referencing earlier material that it's originally sourced from, the Moses material, and that 7 days would be exactly that. Sure, yeah, it sits right there, and it definitely looks like it means that part of us that is pre-attached to things, and to do our best to get back to there. Okay, I'm going to speed through this part here. It deserves more coverage, but on its own. The second creation story, I'll start right off here. In the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, when no plant of the field was yet in the earth, and no herb of the field had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was no one to till the ground, but a stream would rise from the earth and water the whole face of the ground. Then the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. We exist as not yet old enough to be self-aware infants. That's where that is. Then it goes on planting the Garden of Eden. All of our human potential exists. We are in the midst of all of that. The Eden represents a pure state of being. That is where we live. I'm not certain of the 4 rivers. Then we get instructed to take care of the garden. This is our happy place. This is where we live. This is our age in life before we've learned. We get to live our life in bliss called Eden and are instructed not to consume of the good and evil option. Spiritual consumption is mentally taking in and processing life experience and input, right or wrong. Then, of course, it's not good that man be alone, so we're becoming self-aware. Then the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man. So what happens next is we're finally developed enough for Eve to emerge from our side. This is our subconscious. This is a part of us and who and what we are. Our other self, mental subconscious, is formed. This stores our memories as well as the emotional state in which we harbor those memories. This analog is common and always exists in a mental hierarchy with male over female, which means conscious decides the emotional quality that the subconscious stores with the memories. Therefore, a man leaves his father and his mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh, and the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. So what we just want is our conscious and our subconscious to always be together. What happens in life when we're not paying attention and we act out, or something happens that later you wonder, why did I do that? This is not in concert. That is not a good marriage. That is a part of something acting out in us, the good and evil that is acting out. So we want to have a good connection with our subconscious so that that doesn't happen. And the man and his wife at that time were both naked and were not ashamed. Spiritual nakedness. This is not physical nakedness. This is, I have become hurt and ashamed of something and I'm never telling anybody. That hurt is staying inside. Okay. But it's going to act out. It's going to continue to emerge. And that's going to be taught in the material coming up as well. But that is where we are in the story in creation. Now you see Genesis got very elaborate in a number of ways, describing a lot of processes. And the other material is going to do it as well, but at different times in different places. It'll talk about cycles and the return of pain and things like that. If we move on to the Tao Te Ching, what is it? After everything Genesis did, what does the Tao Te Ching say? Naming is the origin of all particular things. When you are starting out in life and you haven't named anything, there is no origin to that. You don't have a way to classify it. Only in naming it and experiencing it does it become what it is to you. Not what it truly is in the physical cosmos or the energy-based cosmos, but what it is to you. When you're naming something, you could call it good or bad, and it becomes that for you based on your experience with it. So yeah, there we go, from huge Genesis variation to the Tao Te Ching, just simply saying naming is the origin of all particular things. However you judge life and store it with the memory and the emotion of that memory is what it becomes. That's what gives it its life. You have named it into existence. And remember that I'm focusing on making sure that all of this fits in the psyche, all of it plays out there. So let's go ahead and go to the first sin then and see what emerges. This is actually something that I have set as how we get off track in life. This is actually what happens. First sin, all the material has at some point, this is where the issues begin to emerge. And let's talk about that a little bit and refresh where we are actually, remembering that all of the teachings start out that there's an empty void, all potential can come from there. We emerge, we gradually grow and develop from there. We now have become two, and we are now ready to begin experiencing life on a larger scale than our non-judgmental younger selves. Okay, I'm going to just try to nutshell this then so we can wrap up this video here. The first sin with the serpent, can't get off the ground. Temptation, right there, can't elevate above it. This represents that the subconscious, the Eve portion of us, collecting something along the way in experience that is not a good experience. Knowing good and evil, it's something that is being put away. It's a shame, it's a pain, it's a hurt, it's a judgment. It's a desire, it's an angst. It is somehow something, some way, something that we're putting away inside of us that's going to affect our life in a derogatory manner. We're putting that away. And we come back and share it with Adam. Why? Because Adam and Eve are conscious and subconscious. They're together. When one suffers, they both suffer. As within, so without. If the emergent issue is within the subconscious, within Eve, that is going to be the issue. But it is there because of the conscious decision to put it there to begin with. So it is a combination of things that we have going on. Repair comes about later. In the meantime, this is what is happening, that now we see that God comes back. God is telling us that, who told you that you're naked? Why are you ashamed making loincloths? This is all letting us know that we're covering ourselves spiritually. In the realm of spiritual lessons, I find it a crying shame that people would take something like this literally and never understand what is in here for us. That this is how we fall apart. This is how our life begins. And what happens then? They are now told to leave the garden, that you are no longer in that place of bliss. So at any rate, what happens then? We see that these stories are telling us that you emerge from the place of all potential. You start out life very joyous and happy. It's a good place to get back to. Later on, that joyous, happy place before we begin to experience life and judge it in harsh ways. And that now we want to get back to where we're getting back towards that. But what I wanted to show in this video is how you can see that sequence happening in all of these teachings, provided you play them out in the psyche. And that, of course, once you do play them out in the psyche, that they continually emerge to be the same teaching, regardless of where it comes from, in antiquity, the time, or what country it came from, what region of the world. There's one teaching inside of all of these, and they're all a bunch of carriers to bring it around. At any rate, okay, I wanted to show that here, and it's a little bit different. It's not quite exactly the hero's journey template. If you follow that one, it starts off with the call to adventure, denial of the call. And in this case, what we're having is you've already made the call. You're turning inward, and here's where it picks up. This is how you came about. This is the reason that you are the way you are. Here is how you must interact with it to change your life. Things of that nature are all the teachings that are in here. And they're carried in vehicles that are intended to work with the population. It's a storytelling population that doesn't have media other than storytelling. So it's got lessons, it's got values, it's got morals. Well, at any rate, depending on where the story comes from, it has different arcs, different carrier shells. And they have different appeals to them, don't they? There's a difference between a spiritual teaching and a myth and a religion that are all carrying this. But the vehicles are quite a bit different, aren't they? Okay, I wanted to show you that pattern, and that it emerges. In one area, it might be large, where in another area, it's doing the same thing, but it's very small. But it's there, and it's in sequence. And when we play it out in the psyche, again, that's where it becomes visible. That's where it emerges. And that's, I'm certain, where it was intended to be. And that's why the consistency in extracting this template from, interpreting a lot of things. Okay, I hope this was entertaining. I hope you enjoyed it. And love one another. I'll see you in the next video.